Hello and welcome to the login here in Dorset for this week's episode of the Leading Lives podcast. My guest today first encountered me over 50 years ago and never since. It's the Mayor of Poole, Pete Miles. Hi Pete, tell me about that 50 years ago.
Well, we were neighbours, Chris. Actually, my parents are still in the house that I was born in Oakdale.
That's quite incredible. We moved away, I think, when I was about 9 or 10, and apparently you keep trying to kid me that I'm actually older than you. I'm not sure I believe you, but you're a man of the sea, aren't you? Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, when I left school, I just went straight in for a summer job. I had no idea what I wanted to do going forward as a career, and I was lucky enough to join the pilot boat service in the port.
What does that mean? What did you do?
Well, in them days the port was particularly busy, so we had 6 pilots, and it was their job. We used to take them out, put them alongside ships, and it was their job to show them the way in the harbour.
Right, but alongside being on the water, you actually like cooking as well, don't you? And that led to opening restaurants in the town?
It did, yeah. Well, I was lucky enough to work with some of the coxswains were fishermen from fishing families, and they took me under their wing and then taught me how to catch fish. So when I started catching fish, I then started hawking it around various restaurants, and then just got really keen on knowing how it was cooked. And so that's what really sparked my imagination. And also, I was a keen lover of Keith Floyd, so
right,
that's where the enthusiasm came from.
So what were the restaurants that you had, and were they fish restaurants, purely fish?
Yeah, it was. I mean, going back 21 years now, when I opened Storm, it was all about the locality of things being caught. It was about sustainability. I mean, that's all become a bit trendy now, but, we used to sell fish that we would catch ourselves or our friends would catch. So it was basically a daily menu set around what was bountiful in Poole. It ran Storm for 21 years, and I think about 10 years ago I had another idea. I'd like to set up a fish tapas bar, which I did in Penhill, the Cruel Sea, and that ran for about 5 years, and that was successful until the landlord saw me out, basically.
So now we have the Dorset Oysters business. What's that?
Yeah, again, when I was fishing, I got really well known for catching prawns, and it was live prawns, which is quite a thing, really. And we worked out a system where we could keep them alive. When I catch them in the morning, keep them alive until the evening, and I get them to a company that was shipping them up to all the top restaurants, the Ivy and Caprice and Sheiky's, and the prawns would then arrive in the morning, still skipping out the boxes. So that's where the idea of the oysters came from. I used to keep my prawns alive on a floating pontoon next to the oyster barge in Poole, and I got talking to Gary Wordsworth there, who was the aquaculturist. We come upon this idea that the oysters could be a similar thing. So when I opened Storm, I wanted his fresh oysters in the restaurant, but I couldn't get them because the people that were cleaning them, decorating them, didn't rate them. They're all being sent off to France, and so I decided we can do it in our restaurant ourselves. And then we looked at the business possibilities where we decided to open our own unit where we could, clean thousands of them.
That's on Nuffield Estate, isn't it? Yeah. Do you still enjoy doing that and, looking after all your oysters?
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's a nice natural product, and I've been about that all my days, really. So, it's an uninterfered with product. It grows. All it eats is, plankton and naturally occurring things, apart from when the local water company want to go and pollute it with their outlets. But yeah, we go to all the really good restaurants. Stein's are our main user. Mark Hicks, right. He's a fan of ours, and I just recently got him on board Cunard liners, and so I was one of the first oyster producers to get him on board.
Fabulous. Talking of fabulous restaurants, though, as well, I believe that you supply one of my previous guests on the podcast. That's Rob Eaton at Rob's Filling Station.
Yeah.
What do you think about his initiative down there?
Well, it's huge. You wouldn't think, someone working out of a tent could have so many good ideas and have an awful lot, going on from the future. Really, I think what he's doing there is huge.
Yeah.
Whether he can pull it off is another matter. But Rob's the sort of bloke I think that probably could pull it off.
Yeah, and the food there as well. It's completely surprises you as well, doesn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, I haven't been lucky to go down over for a supper, but in the morning for breakfast, if anyone's passing, it's just.
Have you tried Sunday lunch?
I haven't tried that. No, I haven't got there yet. Yeah,
do it. It's
good,
fabulous.
is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, again, he's a really honest fella, serving up really good food, you know.
Now, away from your business interests, obviously you've been a councillor for a number of years now, and now you're the mayor. What on earth made you want to become mayor?
It's more luck than judgment, I think. Before we become a mayor, you've got to become a sheriff, because Poole has a sheriff.
Yeah.
And I think when I got re-elected the last time, we normally go for a process of divvying up committees. And I wanted to stick with the Transport Appeals Committee because it's a non-political committee, which I prefer. And then I jokingly said, I'll be the mayor, you know, just thinking, I'll just be the mayor, you see. So and I had to phone up and declare my interest. And when I phoned up to declare my interest, she said, "Oh, great, no one else has."
So you fell into it.
I fell into it, yeah.
Yeah. You said that you were the sheriff before that. Let's just touch on that before we go on to your mayoral duties. The sheriff's got a long history with Poole, and it's got some unique things about it. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, the sheriff, again, it's only ceremonial now, but it dates back to Queen Elizabeth when she deemed Poole to be a very important port, which it was. And basically, they created this role as sheriff to really police it and, well, pull in more taxes, basically. And then the sheriff's role really was to protect the mayor. An interesting role now. The sheriff can't go out unless the mayor's with him these days.
Yeah, doesn't he have to carry something?
He has a wand.
Yeah. And what's the purpose of that?
I mean, to beat people, really. I think in the past it would have been. Now it's more of a ceremonial. Look at me. But yeah, I think years ago he would have carried around a mace.
Yeah, he was there to protect the mayor, wasn't he? Yeah. So, what do you actually do as the mayor?
Mayor, well, people do ask this question. Again, it's a fair bit of groundwork, but it's doing the things that should be done by lots of people, really. It's real grassroots. As mayor, I'm there to promote the town. Yeah. I'm there to protect the historic value of the town, because Poole is very historic. It's laden with history, and it really is letting people know that we're there, and we have this full historic value of regalia. And it's about going about and saying thanks to people, and I've been overwhelmed. When you do go out into the wider public, there's lots of people doing great things. You look at Sea Cadets or the Army Corps, or, other volunteers. They're in there day out, every night, teaching kids, doing good things. And they don't ask for much. They never get much. It's all voluntary. So if I can go out and say thanks, which they're really pleased with.
You go to a lot of these functions across your year term. So far, what's been your favourite one? Has there been a real standout?
Oh, again, some of it, I do get slightly overwhelmed with some of them because, just because you see an awful lot of care in the community, people doing a lot of good things for people, looking after people, and that can be slightly overwhelming. I suppose I was very lucky to nearly sit in the Bluebird car,
Donald Campbell.
Donald Campbell's car. That was down the Royal Motor Yacht Club a few weeks back, and I got really close up to it, and I was being shown all the controls and things. That was pretty amazing. You think that thing's doing 300 miles an hour, and he's got a Morris Minor steering wheel. There's those sort of things that, crazy things. But I think the day-to-day things I really like. I really like getting close to people and seeing what they're doing.
Last week or week before, we had Martin Edwards, who's the chief exec of Julia's House, obviously on the Poole borders, and they do a fabulous job as a children's hospice. They've obviously got this enormous financial problem coming up with the rise in employers' NI. Need to find £240,000 just out of nowhere. It's really tough. So the work that you do in supporting people like that and helping them is very well recognised. There's the Mayor's Award, isn't there? What's that?
Well, there was a Mayor's Award, but for the last few months, they've shut me down as mayor because there were some technical problems with our conditions of work, so to speak, and so they put a hold on my budget.
Right.
And I haven't been able to spend a penny, basically. So I can only go out as mayor if I'm invited. Whereas in the past, I had a budget where I could perhaps invite you around or invite people around to say thanks for what they've done.
Yeah.
But being a mayor without a home, because since since BCP, they gave no regard to where the mayor and the mayoralty would be placed.
So they closed down the civic centre in Poole.
Closed the civic centre there, a perfectly good building that could have housed us, or at least a portion of it could have done. But they gave no regard to that. The place has been empty since.
Yeah, I mean, so I read in the press that you'd said that you were basically living out of your Audi.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a car that the driver takes us around to various functions, and then the chains are in the back, and then I pitch up or we meet somewhere, put the chains on and go off to these functions. So it's completely ridiculous. And all Poole's historic value of his regalia has been spread around the borough.
The Audi, it's not an electric one, is it? Which is sort of goes against the grain with when you hear.
But I think it's an old Audi, so I'm not too sure if they are going to be purchasing some electric cars for us. I'd rather they didn't, really.
You're the mayor of Poole, but Poole is now part of the Unitary Council, I think it's called, isn't it?
Yeah.
BCP, Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, for those viewers that are not in the town. Each of those areas has got its own mayor. So there's 3 times the cost, 3 times the cars, 3 times everything. Do you feel that it's important to keep 3 mayors?
I mean, yeah, I think it is. I think we need our identity as towns. I mean, I don't like the BCP ideal where it's become all homogenised and we've all become one thing, because not only that, we've got a leader of the council as well. So we've got a leader of the council, then we've got a Poole mayor, Bournemouth mayor and a Christchurch mayor. But the Christchurch mayor, I think they have the town council, so that's set aside from us. We use the same drivers and the same mace bearers. So I don't think the cost is hugely more, but I think we do need that identity, and I'd rather we were just alone with it. As
you say, the role the role of mayor is distinctly different, say, from Sadiq Khan or any of the other, I think it's 23 or 24 metro mayors. What do you think of the role of mayor as a metro mayor? Do you think we should be the same?
I'm still not convinced over that.
Some other people have been have been pushing for that.
I think not if it was under BCP. I don't think I'd want to be Metro Mayor of BCP. I think again, I'd rather keep to the town's identity. We're going to revert back to that. We're going to find that this idea of BCP has been a huge mistake, and we may have to start, moving back to something more central when it comes to the towns.
So in 2020. You were part of the local party in power, which was effectively overthrown by a vote of no confidence, wasn't it? And you stood as an independent. And in 2023, you were re-elected as one of the 2 councillors of the ward of Oakdale.
Yeah.
Again, for people not familiar with the area here, Oakdale is a suburb of Poole, or a part of Poole. And in fact, it's where we were neighbours when we were kids. When you had those votes in 2023, you and your fellow independent Poole people, yes, you had more than twice the number of votes that the other candidates had. What did that say about your constituents in Oakdale?
I think I like to think we worked for them, and I think we'd hopefully shown that we actually worked for them, the previous 4 years. Yeah. I think our campaign was personal. We personally approached them all.
So how do you get your views across to them? Because it must be difficult.
It is difficult. I think you've got to be slightly careful when it comes to social media, because I think my other councillor friend, she won't come on it because she was really horribly treated with it, and there were some really disgusting things said to her and about her. So she leaves that alone. I think you just got to be honest. I always leave my numbers on my. You can reach me. You're not going to get through to a switchboard. My personal number's there for residents, and I found through COVID that I was there when others weren't. So I'm quite happy to pick the phone up and speak to anybody at any time of the day, and I make that known. I mean, there's no problem with that, and people should use that service more. And I think we try and we make sure we don't miss any emails, and I think that's very important that we try and and do the things that we're asked to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually full of admiration for people like you who put their head above the parapet, regardless of their political stance. I think it takes balls to do it, and so fair play to you. There's In the most recent local election, although the Liberal Democrats won 28 seats and therefore the most seats, there's no clear majority, is there? So it's a bit of a mishmash of lots of different parties in this area, isn't it? Is that a good thing?
I suppose ideally it is a good thing. I think that is if you get a decent cross match of politicians working for one common good, it's good. It didn't work in the previous administration because it was completely conservative and they held the majority and they were told to vote how to vote. So
along political lines.
Political lines. So that's not really looking after the people's interest. That's looking after a party interest. Whereas this is slightly better. This administration is slightly better because it's holding views from various parties in there, not necessarily the Conservatives, because they're outside of that now. And so, but yeah, I think it's a better working relationship, put it that way.
Things still must occasionally get heated in the chamber. And what frustrates you when you're in there?
The thing that frustrates me the most is people following a party line. I saw it recently with the sale of the Civic Centre. We opposed that, and I think between we actually won the vote on that to actually put that on hold. Don't just sell it as a fire sale, because there is a need for a portion of that building, and we just don't want it to be sold for nothing. And there was the proposal was to put it out to market research to see what could be done with it instead of just selling it on. So on that night, the Liberals just voted as a pact, and I think there were maybe one or two that didn't, and that's what I don't like about it. That is not working for the residents. That's working for a party.
It was only a few days ago that the leader of the council, Millie Earle, and is it Councillor Mike Cox, they did a Facebook live podcast where they were taking questions from the community. And during that, Mike Cox said that the town hall is, I'm not using his exact words here, I'm paraphrasing, but it was costing a fortune, waste of money, must be sold.
Well, he would say that, wouldn't he? Because he's from Christchurch. So, what does he care about Poole? And I know there is a desperate need for money for BCP because it's bust. It lurches from one month to the next, and that's not really no fault of this administration. That's just fault of central government not giving enough money to do what it has to do. But again, I didn't think there was any ambition in what Mike Cox was saying, that, we've got to look at that. We must be able to find partners who would give us what we want in return to having something maybe, at a knockdown price. I think that was all a bit too much. And they were quoting this figure of, say, £20,000 a month to keep it shut. Well, to me, that's nonsense. How could you spend 20 grand a month on that? I mean, they might be spending 20 grand, but they might be charging themselves 15. Right. So I think the figure is an awful lot less than that. I think, to keep that open, there's got to be insurance, security. Oh, what is that? 6 grand a month?
So it's smoke and mirrors. Meanwhile, people still work from home when there's office space available for them. What do you think about that?
Well, again, we obviously spent thousands or millions on refurbing the Bournemouth Town office. And again, it's an empty building. So, where was the need there, really, if everybody's working from home?
On a positive note, what gives you the biggest buzz going into these council meetings, and what do you get out of it?
Well, I always find it quite nerve-wracking, actually, especially if I've got to say something.
I'm surprised by that. You've been talking all morning when you've been in here with me.
I know, but it is. I think when you get up in front of people, that can be a little bit daunting, especially if there's something really important. You've got to get across and get it across right. Yeah, it is. It's a weird buzz, actually, going into those meetings. I quite like it.
How do you feel that you're perceived by your fellow councillors?
God, you'd have to ask them, Chris.
How would you like to be perceived?
I think I'm approachable. I think that'd be the best. I'm approachable, and I listen. I imagine. I do hold strong views, of course, but I think that's that's all part of who I am, really.
What's your current biggest campaign? What are you really getting behind at the moment?
Well, I think the Civic Centre, I think that seems pretty important because I'm the mayor, a homeless mayor. And I as I've been going about my business this last 6 months, you can see there is a huge amount of civic pride in the town. Poole people like the town. They like Poole. There is a reasonable community, and I think that's really important. We need to keep that independence and keep that locality. In the past, I got involved basically because of what was happening with our A&E department and with our maternity hospital. We had the best operating units there. They were the best in the country by far. And yet I go along to high level meetings, and after the meeting, when they're saying this is going to be a great idea, yada yada, and then it all came down to money and government money. We lost those because of cuts.
What do you think will be the outcome of Poole losing its A&E department?
You always hope that something's going to be, common sense is going to be prevailed, because it's not just the A&E department, it's the people who work within them. They're teams. These guys, when you see how well they work together and you start splitting things up, I don't know, that's a good idea. And I think morale must go down. Are they valued when you say we're going to move things around and da-da-da? I'm not sure. I think, Poole is a growing town, needs an A&E department. I think it needs its maternity hospital in Poole. It doesn't need it 10 miles the other way.
I'm about to become granddad literally in the next week or so. And I know that it was a big thing for my daughter to consider all the which hospital she should go to, and in the end actually she's going to Dorchester, but that's another story.
No, I've heard that's a good hospital.
Yeah. You mentioned just now that the council lurches from one crisis to another. I'm just going to go back and quote something that I read. Graham Farrant, the chief executive of the council, in the 22-23 financial year, earned over 193,000. Do you think that the leader of a council should get paid so much money, and it's gone up year on year as well, when the council has been, I would say, failing its residents so badly?
Well, is anybody worth £190,000 a month a year? I don't necessarily see that. I mean, as a councillor, I'm paid 12 grand a year. I think that's ample for what we do. We obviously do. Quite a few councillors do more outside of that time.
His words: "It is imperative that our council is able to attract and retain high quality talent to ensure we are able to achieve our ambitious agenda for Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, and be the best we can for our communities." Do you think that statement's true?
An ideal word, you think so, but is it? I don't think we've done particularly well in the 6 years or 7 years we've been going as BCP. Really, have we saved council, our residents' money? Is the whole thing gone as smoothly as it should? Have we saved the money? I mean, transformation's still happening and it's still costing millions. So I think you've got to take a little bit of responsibility for that. If that was a football manager, then he'd probably still be winning his job.
Yeah. Future Places being an example of something that, as a resident of the town, I genuinely cannot see what it's done to benefit us. Yet it's cost an awful lot of money, and there seems to have been no accountability as far as I'm concerned.
No, again, that was a complete waste of time. Again, that was down to the previous administration run by the Conservatives and the leader then. I think they just fueled each other. I think it was. I think they were playing with public money. It wasn't their own money to play with, so they could scheme and they could squander it how they liked, really. And they should have been pulled up a long time before this.
A lot of money in the area has been spent on cycle lanes. Now, I appreciate that comes from, if you like, a different pot of government money, central government money. But how, or what do you think of the implementation of the cycle lanes that we've had? Whether we should have them or not is another issue, but the way that they've been done.
Again, I'm not a great fan, to be fair, but I'm not too sure if I know recently, if you've been in the town, the roadworks, there's been no liaison with certain roadworks that were happening. We've got cycle lanes, major roadworks, The town's come to grinding halt. I mean, the town doesn't operate very, very well with cars anyway, especially on the school run. Yeah. So I think it could have been done a lot better. How it could have been done better, I don't really know. But it is a hot point. And at the moment, you can understand that they want to link up all these cycle lanes eventually. But in the meantime, how do you go about that process?
Yeah, and I also look around. I mean, the Wallace Down Road cycle lane to me doesn't make sense. It's double cycle lane on each side of the road. Why do we need 4 lanes when nobody's actually using it?
No, I mean, it is a total nonsense. I mean, again, a complete waste of money. One cycle lane on one side, on the southern side of it would have been perfectly safer because, you're not running up against the cars and the car showrooms on the other side. So that doesn't make any sense to me at all. And I don't know what volumes of people are going to be cycling there. I mean, I think they want to link up the universities, but there just won't be the volumes of people using it.
Do you think it's part of the council's anti-car agenda?
I don't know. I think that seems like a general issue throughout, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When there is an anti-car, anti-pollution agenda, but I'm not convinced.
Again, I can only speak as a member of the public, and I'm putting the views. I'm completely apolitical, actually, so I'm just putting the views that people express to me when I'm in the pub or whatever. And I just find that people stand there scratching their heads, not understanding what's going on. The council. I heard the other day that the council is allegedly going to go bust at the end of January. I don't know how true that is, but can you shed any light on that?
I'm not really privy to that, really. What I'm saying is that it probably is lurching from month to month, I should think. I mean, the special needs for kids is that the budget of that is not being met. We can't meet that budget. I mean, I don't think there's any local council that can. That's got to be met outside, but it's not. I go back to the sale of the civic centre. That again, that's another fire sale. They need that few million just to keep going. I mean, we just can't keep. No local government can carry on operating this way.
So you're selling off the crown jewels there as well, aren't you? And I think if you go back to the Thatcher government of the 80s, I mean, there was a lot of privatisation of energy companies, and now I think we're looking at that thinking, well, we don't actually own anything. We don't own as a country any of our utilities. And so eventually, you sell off all the assets and you're left with nothing.
I mean, utilities for profit is a complete nonsense. And, you can't make that up, can you really?
No, not really.
I mean, I hear they're stopping, paying out these rewards to water company bosses. How can they get a bonus when there's a crap? It doesn't make any sense, does it,
Yeah. What do you think is going to happen to council tax next year? The Mike Cox actually said in that same podcast that it was going to go up by 4.99%. Now, I did note that he didn't say at least 4.99%. Currently, that's the maximum. But if the Labour government relaxes that maximum, and there's been a lot of talk about that in the press, do you think they'll increase it by more?
I think there'd be uproar, won't there, from the residents? I think the residents now, as you know, they're paying enough. Now,
I don't know how we're going to pay any more.
No, we can't. They're being squeezed everywhere. We're not necessarily getting the services that we want.
Yeah.
When I get that from residents, they're saying they can't, they can't get hold of any. But can I tell you a story that happened to me a few weeks ago?
Carry on.
I was phoned by residents in Dale Road, some lovely old people in old people's flats and things, and they phoned me again because of my number's there. And they said, "Can you help us, Pete? There's been dogs barking outside of an upstairs window at this house for the last 3 or 4 days, and no one's coming out to help us." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "There's dogs. The windows are open. The dogs are hanging out the window barking. Can you come and help us?" I said, "Well, of course, I'll come down and have a look, So I gets there. They've been on the phone all day to all the various people, the police, BCP, RSPCA, whatever. No one wants to come out. So I goes across. There's a single lady lives in this house. And there's Alsatian dogs outside the window barking. And they've kept the residents awake for the last 3 days, day and night, barking, until they got hold of me. So I can't get hold of anyone on the phone. I goes down I'll go down the police station, find out. And on my way, there's a couple of coppers dealing with some drunk. I say, "Can you come and help me quickly?" I said, "There could be a problem here. I don't know what it is. No one knows where the lady is. These residents, can't get sleep." "Well, sorry, mate," he said, "that's not down to us." He said, "You need to phone an ambulance." I said, "Well, I don't want to phone an ambulance. I need someone to help me." "No," he said, "you've got to phone a 99 ambulance. That's how it's done today." So I said, "Okay." So I phoned a 99 ambulance. I said, "I've got this issue." And eventually they send out these 2 young lady paramedics to come and help out. We can't go in the house because of these bloody dogs. I mean, they're big Alsatians. So, and the girls say, well, we don't want to go in there, Pete. We just don't want to go in there. We don't know what we're going to find. You know, and I've done circled the building. There's dog crap everywhere, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So the girls then get onto the police and say, can you come out? We need someone here to sort dogs out. The police say, no, sorry, that's not. Are the dogs aggressive? And we said, well, we don't know. Well, we can't come out unless the dogs are aggressive. I said, well, we don't know the dogs are aggressive unless we go in there and then we get eaten alive. So eventually the guy says, well, here's a code, phone 999. This is to the ambulance crew. And so eventually we get a dog warden out later on that night. So they've been sat in their car that could have been on other emergencies. Dog warden comes out, gets in there, sorts the dogs out. You know, the dogs are quite friendly in the end. Mm-hmm. And eventually we find the lady upstairs dead on the bed. Probably been there a couple of 3 days, but we didn't know that. She could have been gasping for breath in the days that the old lady's been trying to get someone there. So, you know, you ask what the councillor does. That's you had to step up for that. But you just say, what? You know, there's care in the community, but it's just trying to get hold of it.
It's really interesting that you said about putting your phone number out there, because I've tried to call a council recently to report an issue with a blocked drain. Yes, you can fill an online form in. I appreciate that. But you get an acknowledgement, but it's not really anything tangible. Somebody will look at it someday, you know. But if you're like my elderly mother, you know, lives on her own, doesn't have the internet, not interested, doesn't understand it, to be honest, she's never going to do that. You know,
well, that's what we found with the old people. They're doing their citizens' duty or trying to alarm. Yeah, come and help out. We know that the lady could be there. She's unlikely to leave her dogs, and we couldn't summon anybody. You know what happened as well? On the end of the day, I said to the police, they said, can you shut the windows? At least these people can get some sleep. They phoned me the next morning and say, can you come around and sort the dogs out? They're still hanging out the window.
No.
You can't believe it, can you?
No. And doesn't that say a lot about our society these days, how it's changed?
It just made me puke, to be fair.
Yeah. So car parking in the Echo today. Now, this podcast probably won't go out for another week or so, but in today's Echo, there's a report that car parking charges are going to rise. This is just another nail in the coffin of local business, isn't it, in high streets?
No, I think it's just crazy. I don't know how, you know, I don't know where we go with it. And another thing, it gripes me a bit. I was there the other day, and there's a lady trying to pay for a car parking because half these car parking things won't take coins. You know, people honestly trying to pay to park, and they can't do it. I mean, it's mental. But I think that it's just going to drive more and more people out to the B&Qs and the places where there's free parking, isn't there?
Yeah, Castle Point being
Castle Point, you know.
But
and Poole's looking good at the moment, I think. You go back into Poole, Poole's looking good. It's looking healthy once again, you know. I just don't think they need to put them up that much, you know.
I'm not sure I agree with you with that. I haven't been into Poole Town Centre for a little while, to be fair. But I look around our community as a whole, and I see dirty streets. I spent, with my working life, I spent a lot of time in the United States and in Florida particularly. And over there, you mentioned civic pride. You do not see litter on the streets anywhere.
Yeah.
Nobody will throw a sweet wrapper down or whatever, or a finished, half-finished cheeseburger or whatever. Over there, it's immaculate. It's a bit like Disney, but in the real world. And we're different, aren't we? Mm. I think that's a great shame. And I've seen a big decline in Poole.
Yeah, I actually think it's showing. I say it's saying signs of real improvement. I mean, I'm going back. I've run a business there for 20 odd years, and I've really struggled. Over some of the things I've had to put up with in trying to run a business. You say about car parking, and I'm trying to run a business and park my car for 10 minutes while I go and offload, those sort of things. It's been really awkward for me. But I feel a sense of improvement in there.
Okay. Yeah.
But you like you say, you take a drive along the Upton bypass, mm-hmm. and every verge is just full of crap, isn't it? You run along a French road, you don't see a piece of litter anywhere.
No. And in fact, same up the Bournemouth Spur Road to Ringwood. I mean, I've been driving, 45 years or more. And I don't ever remember it being like that.
No.
I mean, it's a bit of a hot potato, this one, so maybe we shouldn't talk about it. But do you think the change in the makeup of the community is having any bearing on that?
As in what you say, Chris?
Well, we have had a lot of people move into the area, not just from overseas, but from other parts of the UK over the past few years. And I just wonder if there's different cultural, less civic pride, less ties to the town, maybe, and people just not bothered.
I don't know. I don't really necessarily see that. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
I can sort of see a point on that, but I think this is why we're trying to keep our individuality, well, to get it right on that one, individuality, and that sense of pride with Poole, and that's what I'm trying to promote as mayor. I think that's important. We are a proud historic town, and I think it's been, as you say, it's been probably let go, and BCP hasn't helped because I really don't think they value what, as a town we are.
Do you think they regard Bournemouth as the jewel in the crown and everybody else as a hanger-on?
I think it was. I think it wasn't about public services and running things properly or much better. I think it was about control and power.
There was a lot of controversy at the time of the merger, and there was great proclamations that it was going to save loads of money. How's it worked out?
I don't mean it won't save any money at all, will it? I mean, just the transformation budget alone is out of control. I mean, the people of Poole and the people of Christchurch weren't even asked about it. I mean, now we were given some sort of say on a parish town council idea, but even that's too late. I think at the end of the day, people generally are right, and I think if we were asked, do we want this, we would have said no. I mean, Poole was quite a prosperous town. It had a fairly decent bank balance and had good people working within that town. So, and I don't know now it's BCP, if it's become partisan in any way, you can see that with the Christchurch, with Mike Cox, for instance.
Yeah.
He doesn't really care. All he sees that as an asset he can sell to prop it up. Whereas William Poole want to keep that for something for us. And he said something in council which was wrong. He says, well, the people from Poole will receive the money. Well, we bloody well won't. That will go in a big pot and it'll be gone in months.
More consultancy fees, perhaps?
Oh, I'll leave them alone. We don't need them, That's what I said.
Yeah. In your time, excuse me, in your time as councillor, what do you think's been your greatest achievement?
Oh, crikey. I think, oh dear. Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, I think...
That's the toughest question, you reckon?
Yeah. Well, I just think a lot of it is very... it's sort of gentle work, I think is having being there to listen to people when they want something. A lot of the residents, and I go back to COVID, were very alone and scared. I think just being someone they can speak to, I think that's much better. I can't see me, the way the last administration would have any input on that. I think working on that appeals committee is good because it's not political. I think having the ear of some other people that make the decisions is quite good. I can point my point of view. I think being there for those old biddies the other night that couldn't get to sleep for 4 days, but trying to highlight that, that something's not quite right there, Yeah. At the moment, we were in Poole. We've lost one of our pumps in one of our fire engines, and to me that's wrong. We're a growing town, and something's not right with that.
On the subject of the fire engines, obviously that's a move towards centralisation. We used to have Dorset Fire and Rescue, and now it's DW Fire, Dorset and Wiltshire. Do you think service has dropped off from what you've seen?
I think they may well be now. I think that this next round of cuts is bad. I'm just going back to something else. When I first joined the council, I highlighted the problem of sewage in the harbour, because we get problems with our business. I've been shut down 6 months because of sewage problems. Yeah. I've lost big contracts in London because they get wind of that.
Wind of the sewage.
Yeah. So that's right. We all do. But I brought that to council and I highlighted that. So I said, do you know this is happening? The council said, no, we don't know it's happening. Well, I said, well, since January, there's like 3 months, there's 150,000 tonnes of raw sewage gone into the harbour. Did you know that? No. So they go back to Wessex Water, and Wessex Water say, no, it's nothing to do with us. And this is what they said. They said it was winter harbouring yachts and leaky septic tanks. Well, I'm sorry, but, no leaky septic tank is going to leak that much into the harbour. So they now accept, a few years on, they now accept that they are the problem. And I think they are going to try and help things, but it's going to take many years before it's ever resolved.
So that's just not acceptable to the local community or any community,
No, it's not,
is it? Visitors as well. It's a tourist area.
And we've got the huge plan. We need to build more houses, but we can't cope with what we've already got. This is the trouble. So, it's just underinvestment over the years, and it's so easy just to pump it out because it becomes someone else's problem, but it becomes our problem, and people want to go for a swim.
Yeah.
And you can't have someone from Wessex Water saying, well, go for a swim, but keep your mouth shut. It's wrong. Totally wrong.
Another really contentious issue crops up every year. I think you probably know where I'm heading with this one. Travellers. And there's no, whatever they call it, layover facility for them. Local people are fed up with what happens in Poole Park and other fields. What can the council do to stop this? And if they can do things, why aren't they doing them?
Again, what it is, they can never agree on a transit site. That's the problem. They say they opt for there, and then the residents of that area, so we actually don't want them there. So I actually don't know what we can do about it. We did have some travellers move into Oakdale Old School this year, and the residents were onto me straight away, and I managed to get the move on quite quickly. But I went down and spoke to them, just say, look, whilst you're here, can you just be polite, just and they were.
How did that go?
Yeah, they listened to me. I got told to piss off a couple of times from for just being there, but they said we'll try our best. So just have some respect for the people who live here, fella, and you might not get hassled too much. Yeah. But again, they did leave a load of trash on the way out, and of course, a bad name follows suit, doesn't it? Yeah. They obviously do need some sort of traveller site, but the residents need to agree that. I don't know, and that's a tough one.
Pete, thanks for coming in and facing all a barrage of difficult questions. And I can only say that I think you've answered them honestly and openly, and I appreciate that. I like that you put your views across so stridently as well. So maybe I should say, see you in another 50 years, eh? We'll be 100 by then.
Well, we probably won't recognise each other then, will we? We'll know who we are.
Well, the team here at Hallmark at The Login will be back next week with another episode of the Leading Lives podcast. So join us then. Thank you.